And you will be aware that 6 motions have been listed on the summons in the order they were received. As a number are of a similar nature, it has been agreed to combine the debate on motions 11A and C regarding the Davy Hill incinerator plant. We will then take motions 11B and F together concerning transformation of services. In taking 2 motions together, I will ask for each to be moved and seconded in the order that they appear on the summons. I will then ask for any amendments to be moved and seconded before having a debate on all aspects. Proceeding to the vote, I will put each motion to the vote in the order that they are listed, taking into account the procedure for amendments. Proceeding with motions 11A and C, please note that the debate on this is being streamed to the BREP Clean Energy website. 11A, starting then with the first motion. Councillor Mrs. Ward, please.
Thank you. The principle of biomass technology was supported by the Labour government in 2006 in response to a biomass task force report and subsequently became government policy. The government at that time also set planning targets for local authorities to achieve a major expansion of biomass plants throughout the UK and introduced rigid scrutiny within local authorities for non-compliance with the planning policy relating to sustainable energy. Despite this restrictive planning legislation, in November 2011, the Planning Committee refused the biomass application on grounds of public perception of significant health risks relating to poor air quality and ongoing regeneration of the local area. Unfortunately, due to the application has not been upheld in either the planning inquiry or by the High Court. However, the Council has steadfastly supported the local community through the planning process, appeal and legal challenge stages. We know that this development is the wrong technology on the wrong site, adjacent to an air quality management area, and it's imperative therefore as a key priority that the Council now enters into dialogue with Peel Energy to seek their agreement not to proceed with the development of the biomass plant. Work stopped recently on the biomass development at the Port of Blythe, Northumberland, on the ground cited by the developer of the gradual erosion of support for dedicated biomass. Hopefully, therefore, through discussion with the Council, Peel Energy will see beyond any commercial benefit and finally accept the serious potential impact the pollutants will have on air quality, and that only by reducing the air pollution risk will we hope to achieve the provision of a healthier and safer environment for our residents. It is the one vital way in which Peel Energy can demonstrate any respect or care for the borough. And for the people who live there, and to protect public health. Trafford has a legacy of poor air quality, as you all know, and cancer is the leading cause of death for people under 75 years, and accounted for 38% of premature deaths between 2008 and 2010. The incidence of cancer is rising in the borough faster than the regional and national rates. Additionally, Salford Lung Study is currently planning to carry out COPD research in the Greater Manchester area, which is sponsored by drug company GlaxoSmithKline. And I'm not saying that as an advert, what I'm saying is the seriousness of a big company like GlaxoSmithKline supporting something like that indicates that there's a high incidence of COPD in the Greater Manchester area. We know that COPD can be caused not only by smoking, but also by long-term exposure to air pollution, fumes and dust from the environment. There are many other facts relating to serious lung and cardiovascular diseases, etc. And I move the motions laid out, Mr. Mayor, and I would urge all members to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Is that seconded?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on a Sunday morning in August 2010, I attended a meeting with 2 residents, a mother and daughter, who live on the same housing estate as myself, to discuss their concerns about the then proposed incinerator. Shortly after that meeting, I attended the first meeting in a local public house of a group that was later to become BREP Clean Air Group. A tin was passed around to collect donations to fight the proposed incinerator. The previous month, Tuesday, July 13, 2010, there was a cyclist arranged by Richard Bowen at Pendragon PR, attended by councillors representing Dalyhulme West, where Field Incinerator is due to be located, and Dalyhulme East. That visit was followed by a glossy presentation back in the offices of the Trafford Centre, when the PR company and my kingdom from Peel attempted to put our minds at rest and show how good this was going to be. I stated there and then that, in addition to the concerns I had about the construction of a wildlife corridor along the Manchester Canal and the increased traffic bringing material to be burned, I had two major concerns. What happens to what comes out of the bottom of the incinerator, or what happens to what comes out of the top? I still have concerns about the destruction of the wildlife corridor, though I know that animals are great at adapting and they will find new pathways. I still have concerns about the increased traffic, bringing who knows what to be burnt. I have greater concerns about what should happen if there is an accident on the local roads or motorways and the toxic waste from the bottom of the incinerator is exposed to the open air or runs into our local groundwater. My greatest concern, no, make that greatest fear, is what comes out of the top of the incinerator through the incredibly low chimney. When most of the controversial buildings are constructed, it is usually possible to state with certainty that although people may not like them, and if it's a large venue attracting lots of visitors they may cause traffic issues, they will not slowly make people ill or even bring about an early death. The plans for this incinerator have been submitted as a result of poor legislation enacted by previous national governments, and I do mean the two parties that have led Parliament over the last 2 decades. The poor legislation does not mean that companies should demonstrate a lack of conscience and ride roughshod over entire communities in the pursuit of profit. The poor legislation also allows a government agency, yes, the Environment Agency, to demonstrate that in addition to not being able to protect communities from underground issues such as fracking, and ground level issues such as flooding, they are unable to protect communities from polluted, poisonous and dangerous air. I'm not about to repeat what's already been stated many times over the last 3.5 years. I am no scientist and will not pretend to understand all those issues. I'll state my honest belief that this issue is not resolved in terms of health and should not proceed further. With Peel Energy following national policy that is not fit for purpose, a government hamstrung by poor legislation that is now superseded by scientific studies clearly demonstrating previously unknown ill health effects, an Environment Agency not fit for purpose, it has been left to communities to defend themselves on a battlefield that is clearly not level in terms of cash resources. Trafford Council has fought long and hard and still supports its residents. I would ask two things this evening: that Peel Energy step back and demonstrate they have a conscience and can put neighbourliness and a clear conscience ahead of profit. The other thing I ask is that every member of this council supports the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poss. Councillor Proctor, please could you now move the motion set out at 11C?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot should be duplicating what I've just been said by my colleagues, but here we go. I hope that we can get party support on this motion and agree the actions which the Labour Group are proposing. Everyone would agree it's a fundamental human right to be able to breathe clean air. And this council should do everything it can to achieve this, and in doing so, protect the health and well-being of our citizens. The motion is fairly self-explanatory. It calls for extensive monitoring of air pollution in our borough and tough action to be adopted on those who are causing green levels to be breached. This is against the backdrop of the EU recently launching legal proceedings in the United Kingdom for failing to deal with air pollution, especially nitrogen dioxide, which can cause respiratory illnesses and premature death in some cases. These proceedings could lead to fines being imposed in the UK of up to £300 million a year, so breaches have financial as well as health implications. In Trafford, as we heard from Councillor Ward, poor quality levels have already been found to be above acceptable bounds. In some cases, readings showing over 50% in excess of the legal limits for nitrogen dioxide. The recent findings from the BREP group, which have been widely reported, demonstrate this, with 9 out of 11 of their recent local test results being over the EU limit of 40 micrograms per cubic metre. We have to act urgently to avoid the potential devastating consequences to our residents, and we have suggested a range of things that could be done in our motion. Against this background, we had last month devastating news about the failed legal appeal against the Barking renewable energy plant. If it goes ahead, it adds to air pollution levels, spewing out dangerous pollutants such as arsenic, dioxins, nitrogen dioxide and nanoparticles into our local towns. This will remain concentrated in our local areas, and with the necessary low chimney stack, we've been able to distribute the toxic waste further away. In addition, the other appeal group developments, as we've also heard, plans will also attract more vehicles, adding to air pollution levels. We've been let down by an environmental agency who have proved to be totally toothless in its role of issuing a permit, and if the plant is built, will not undertake unannounced emission testing, meaning that Clean Energy will have a free run to operate how they want to, with no consequences or accountability. We've also been let down by the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, Eric Nichols. Most of the people of this borough and all councils and the planning committee members have all voiced their opposition to the incinerator, and he has simply ignored these views and approved it. This flies in the face of local democracy and the Localism Act. It's completely outrageous that it's been override the wishes of our local people in this way. We're also proposing that the council uses the provisions contained in the 2007 Sustainable Communities Act to back incinerator plans. Under this legislation, it is possible for us to gain authority to promote the sustainability of local communities through things like local regeneration and environmental protection. This would, if approved, prevent the construction and operation of an incinerator plant in areas like Davyhulme, which is subject to regular air quality monitoring. Finally, we believe, as a Conservatives also do, that this council should be actively engaging with Peel Energy to ensure that they are fully aware of the strong and overwhelming public negative response to incinerator plans, and that the vast majority of our local people believe that it should not be built now or any time in the future. So now, this motion sets out a range of actions which this council could and should legitimately take to improve the air quality of our borough for local residents. Most importantly, it also confirms our continuing unwavering opposition to the Barking renewable energy plant, which would have a massive effect upon our air quality if it were to proceed. I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Is that seconded?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try not to repeat everything that's already been said tonight, but this might be a little difficult. I think we all accept that air pollution in Trafford is already unacceptably high, and it is dangerously high. And we all know that the proposed biomass incinerator plant will further pollute our air. But despite widespread opposition, the government decided to allow the incinerator to be sited in Davyhulme, and this council was recently forced to spend public money fighting this terrible decision. A decision which clearly flies in the face of local democracy and the Localism Act. A decision that will be detrimental to the people of Trafford. And sadly, last month, this fight was lost. And we know, as has already been mentioned tonight, that we cannot rely on the Environment Agency to ensure that the air we breathe is clean and safe, not whilst they continue to grant permits for incinerators and fail to carry out unannounced visits to polluting plants. And we owe it to the people of Trafford to make a representation to the Secretary of State under the Sustainable Communities Act to give Trafford Council the authority to prevent the construction and operation of any plant that reduces air quality and therefore is a threat to the sustainability of the communities within this borough. And where the government is failing, it becomes the responsibility of this council to do all we can to protect our children and our communities. We must properly monitor air quality and ensure that businesses clear message to Peel Energy that the Barton Renewable Energy Plant is not welcome in Trafford. I urge you to support the proposals laid out in the Labour motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mitchell has given notice that he wishes to move an amendment to the motion 11C. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. These are extraordinary times when we both move motions of such startling similarity. I'm hoping that we can go forward with a unanimous view. But I would like to point out one or two slight difficulties with the wording of parts of the second motion here today. Mr Mayor, we have all opposed this incinerator from its very inception. I myself attended the hearing and spoke against it. I think that we are genuinely united in our horror of what this represents. The motion is built up of paragraphs and a number of bullet points. Paragraphs 1 and 2, perhaps a little bit more extremely worded than I would have done, but I can find no argument. Paragraph 3 states that we recognise that the environmentation is not able to protect the air we breathe. Forgive me, there are physical errors within that statement. The Environment Agency monitors, regulates, controls around 3,000 industrial activities ranging from nuclear sites, chemical plants, food and drinks manufacturers, through to intensive pig and poultry farming. They regulate 7,000 waste management facilities, 2,000 users of radioactive substances, a whole gamut of processes. They can refuse to permit incinerators if they do not comply with the necessary initial standards. And it's standard practice across the EU that major industrial processes are legally required to conduct their own continuous monitoring. And it works very successfully, certainly in France, where they actually incinerate virtually all of their non-recyclable waste.
Not with the same technology.
Paragraph 4 states that air pollution is getting worse. Forgive me, climatic effects can create short-term fluctuations which make that sort of measurement unreliable. Detailed analysis of the nitrogen oxides and the particulates in the 5-year period from 2007 to 12 does not in fact indicate that pollution is getting worse. However, our difficulty is at futurity. It's how much worse will it get if we continue to have polluting industries developing in that at-risk corridor. And so I believe as the word at risk, we have encapsulated the wish of this motion. We wish to protect ourselves from the future pollution of our air. There are a couple of little bits in this in the bullet points. We resolve to measure and monitor air quality. We do. After last council, I had the pleasure of writing to the Secretary of State, imploring him to listen to the authorities in their wish to actually retain the monitoring requirements across the country. And I'm grateful to all of those who supported that motion. I think it's necessary for the protection of the people of Trafford. We don't have to do the whole one. It's the air quality corridor. That's where we are at risk. And I would remind you that cars are still probably one of the biggest contributors to all again, minor adjustments to bullet point 5.2, just to stress the fact that we can only go as far as possible for ourselves. We can't do the impossible. 5.3, I'm happy to accept. 5.4, I think is superfluous. Forgive me. The record of the Secretary of State in this area is not one that is given our persuasion or our ability to sway. Don't fight the battles we can't win. Let's concentrate on the ones that we can win. 5-5, I'm happy with. Apart from these, I would say, please support this motion. It is this amendment of this amended motion. Together we can actually go forward and continue our fight. We have only one course left, and it has been mentioned twice already, and that is the appeal to drop this Tory development in its entirety. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Is that seconded?
No, don't second it.
I will now invite members to speak on any of the matters raised by the two motions and the amendment. Please can I ask members to keep their hands up whilst we make a note of speakers. Thank you. Councillor Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I want to say to start with is that this council has been unanimous across the political parties right through all of this and right from the beginning. And I think that has helped us enormously. And I want to pay tribute to the councillors for that. And I want to pay tribute to the BREP Clean Air Group. I think it was a tremendous job. I think we were all devastated when this was first given permission by Eric Pickles. And I do think it flew in the face of local democracy and localism. And I was obviously, like everybody else, disappointed about the result of the recent appeal. What I do want to say, however, now that Councillor Mitchell has spoken, is that what I would have expected was that we would have unanimous support for the motion that we put forward.
Yes.
We will support your motion, and if we have to, because we haven't got the hands, we will support your amendment. But what I'm saying is that what you've done by amending our motion is to water down the motion. And quite frankly, I think it's fair to say that we don't have any confidence or faith in the Environment Agency to actually protect us, to be able to breathe clean air. They, time and time again, they have let us down. Every time we put an argument to the Environment Agency, they change the goalposts, and they will continue to change the goalposts. And if we're about anything, it is ensuring that we're able to breathe clean air in this borough. And by watering down the first part of our motion, you're actually saying we're going to water down our responsibility in keeping free air. Because we need to invest in more extensive monitoring of air quality, which goes beyond the government guidelines, and we need to ensure our planning policies better protect the people of Trafford.
Absolutely.
When you say that it's superfluous, the part where we said we need to propose to the government through the Sustainability Communities Act to allow councils to prevent our incineration plants, which reduce air quality inside air quality management areas, such as the one proposed in Davy Uni. To say that that is superfluous, I can't understand your logic in that. What we're actually saying that they should change the Act to ensure that that never happens again, because it is purely wrong. And I can't understand that you're doing that. So what I want to appeal to all members, quite frankly, is that think again about your amendment and support our motion and support it unanimously with a clear recommendation so that we can move forward again united. Thank you.
Councillor Astin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's very important that we continue the consensus where we can on this proposal, on the motions and on actually supporting people in our group and our communities in Dayqueue, and that's a principle that we'll continue to do vigorously as this council. This council is very proud of this record, more members of supporting communities in Dayqueue, Brixton and Ermston against that development. The challenge arises when there are parts of the motion that are factually incorrect or won't deliver, and that's where you have a difference in opinion. And of course it's very easy for you to support our motion because it says which is on the tin. There's nothing particularly in there that is going to say what, you're laughing at me, and this council is saying that we will continue to support the residents of our borough to the best of our ability, and that is a commitment that we've made, and it's a commitment that we'll continue to keep. And if you think that's funny, then shame on you. And what I'm trying to say very clearly is that we're looking at the motion, and the motion you put forward, there are parts of it that are not consistent with reality. And it's not trying to say to you that we're trying to create a division in the two parties or anything like that. And it's just simply about saying there are items of this motion, as Councillor Mitchell has outlined, that are not going to make the difference that you think there are. And we have a good record in this council over the last 3 years of focusing our efforts on the steps that we can take together on the things that we think can make the difference. And that's the reason why we put forward the amendments, not to create a division, not to water down, but to simply look at this and say, in reality, what are we going to get? How can we continue to support the residents of our borough? And this council will take practical steps with Councillor Acton knows, and Councillor Falcon knows, when we sat just a few weeks ago with the group and others, we said that we will continue to look at practically what can we do to support the residents of our borough, whether that's with engaging with pure energy, whether that's with looking at how we monitor air quality. All of these things will be considered, and to try and make this a motion of division between these parties is not a response that I think is respectful to the residents of this borough.
Considering the number of motions we've got and the time we have, we have to restrict timings to 1 minute in terms of people speaking. So can we have Neil Taylor, Councillor Taylor, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this group, we're very happy to support both of these motions that were put forward today. We will not be supporting the amendment, unfortunately. We will go with the Labour motion on it. I want to say well done to the BREP group who've done a sterling job on the campaign. But we should be tackling air pollution at source. And the source in this case is going to be this plant if it goes ahead. Little's been spoken about children in the area. The children are suffer more than anything because they have smaller lungs. So, as I say, we want the common cause and for this not to take place, but we will be opposing the amendment, unfortunately. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're all trying to achieve the same aim here, and we're all trying to get the same result. Just a couple of things. Going back onto what the leader mentioned. Thank you. I don't take that personally. Just a few inaccuracies, that's all, in your motion. Basically, we're all looking at the same thing. It's not all about the environment here, we all share those concerns. We do have a local environment protection team who actually do carry out and monitor, in your first paragraph, continuous monitoring. Secondly, it's not the role of the planning policy to protect people from further air pollution. When I say that, we work in collaboration, the planning team works in collaboration with the pollution team. So it's sort of as a partnership, so it's not all down to the planning process. Thirdly, seek out companies, processes or other think that on the previous one it says we do not favour companies that will pollute Trafford Day, which I think we've demonstrated that by refusing the initial application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Anthony was talking about we're not trying to create divisions in the Conservative group, and Councillor Mitchell is not trying to create division by his motion, but his motion is too vague, it's too gentle. It should measure and monitor air quality in the air quality corridor to establish how big the problem is. How big the problem is. That's a pretty vague term now, how big the problem is. I think our motion is serious, it's got detail. If people holding to see that motion, they're going to get up and sit up and listen to what we're saying. And that's what this council should be doing. Supporting the Labour motion and the Conservative motion, and we certainly don't want to create divisions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Can I just make a small point of order? The wording, how big the problem is the original Labour motion. This is your motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Sophie Taylor. Oh, okay. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're here in this situation tonight because the Community Secretary has let us down badly. Mr. Pickles, and I quote, he said, far too long the people have had little say over the planning systems, and that's been post-bureaucracy decisions by district officers in Whitehall. We need to change things so there's more direct democracy and less bureaucracy in the system. The reforms will be building blocks for the big society. The localism was designed to give local people a greater say in the planning in their area. Localism is planning to create freedom and the incentive for those places who want to grow to do so and reap the benefit. More people planning and less political planning. Mr. Pickles said one thing and he's done another. Against the council and the vast majority of the people in Trafford, he alone has let us down and has built this monstrosity. We should be going back to Mr. Pickles and telling him to look again at what he's done and what he said.
Thank you. Councillor Blackburn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm old enough to remember poor air quality before Old Trafford became smokeless in 1968. Going to the corner shop with a hanky over your mouth and coming back with a hanky being yellow-brown. I'd like to ask Peel Energy, if they build this vile incinerator, will they be distributing mass like they do in Tokyo? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's absolutely essential this first bullet point is included in the motion tonight at Council. If you do not include this motion, I do not understand what you are about. Because all we're asking for is good quality monitoring. This Council does not monitor any of these elements here. I don't know if you're aware of that. We are not monitoring many of these gases and elements here. We have to have the accurate, correct equipment to monitor. If we don't monitor correctly, we are failing everybody in Trafford. And it's not just the constituencies, the wards in Davyhulme. And just think about the flow of air across Trafford, straight into Sale and Timperley. Everybody across Trafford is affected by this. And I speak as a Sale councillor. If you don't include this bullet point, you are failing the residents of this borough.
Councillor Stephen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And that is the discussion that I've just been having here, is about how we incorporate that first bullet point into an amendment. There clearly are implications for incorporating that bullet point into the amendment, so I can't put it back in as it was originally written. But what I can do, I think, is to be able to almost in its entirety reinsert it to requiring investment beyond government guidelines so that we can continue to monitor nitrogen oxides and so on, and that in order to, I think we're going to have to come up with a form of words that brings forward very quickly the ability of that, how the council might achieve that, as a way of incorporating it back into the motion, because I clearly take the point that's just been made, that we need to make sure that air quality monitoring in this borough has teeth. And so if I can have a form of words that talks of bringing that to contract and labour groups.
Well, can I help you then? Why can't you just agree the motion? I don't understand why.
Look, I've said this before, there are implications of putting this back in, and we need to make sure that the council has assessed those implications and is able to support something that we agree at this council. It would be a foolish thing to do to not to just reinsert something without having the implications that assessed. So I'm trying to work with you to put this back in a form of words that will clearly commit the council to being able to measure the particulates that's laid out in that motion, and that we will do that very quickly and bring forward that to you. And then, if you don't want to take that offer, then I just won't amend it at all. Thank you very much.
I will, of course, accept that in good faith, but I do feel very strongly that that is a critical paragraph. Now, if you're saying to me, well, you need to look at the financials and all of those implications around that, I'm happy to do that, but as far as I'm concerned, I will have to bring this back to council if we don't get agreement on that. If you accept that, then I'll accept it.
And that's fine.
Councillor Young, did you want to speak on this one?
Maybe, Mr Mayor, if Peel continue with their intention to build, despite all our requests, could I ask that Peel have to have an online monitoring of a number of elements, details in the Labour motion, and I would like to see those put online on a streaming basis by Peel, so people can actually see what is in the game.
Yes, but it shouldn't get to that stage, should it?
Councillor Lucy, did you want to speak on that?
Mr Mayor, I wasn't going to speak, but I'd just like when in discussion with Peel to ask why they're building it there, when they own land between Manchester and Merseyside. I just hope they weren't influenced by a decision that was taken in Salford when similar planning was refused. And then the Labour member on air said it would be better built in Trafford Park.
Thank you. Mr
Mayor, therefore this council resolves to provide targeted monitoring of the air quality in the borough to establish the extent of the problem, acknowledging that this requires investment beyond government guidelines so that we can monitor nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide and so on, and reads as it then continues. So, the council will do that if you're content, and then I think we can look at, we still need to look at wider issues, and that's the case, but in terms of getting an agreement here, and clearly part of that targeted monitoring will be along the air quality corridors that Councillor Mitchell referred to before, where we have a real problem. If that, we can proceed on that basis, then we're happy to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to proceed on that basis. If you're happy, that if I'm not happy.
Now, there's a right to inquiry from Councillor Proctor. Does Councillor Proctor want to respond?
Not huge reach agreement.
For the minute.
Right, so we...
amendment. And as I understand it, the amendment will be the amendment that's been proposed by the Conservatives as originally drafted, but with the exception that in the resolution, where it says therefore this council resolves, the first bullet point will now read as was read out by Councillor Anstey. So it will read, therefore this council resolves to provide targeted monitoring of air quality throughout the borough to establish the extent of the problem, acknowledging this requires investment beyond the government's guidelines so that we can monitor nitrogen dioxide, etc., as was in the original motion. So basically, the second vote will be on the amendment as amended, as I've just read it out, just to make it absolutely clear.
So could we have a vote on the first motion? Carried.
Who's not voting? That's the green button on this one.
Has everybody voted? Okay, the motion is carried back. So we're now voting on the amendment. The amendment.
Taken out.
Can we have a show of hands on the